Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Shanley Show. As you can tell from the title and the thumbnail, we're talking about why the don't judge a book by its cover argument is obsolete for books. Now, before we get into this disclaimer, slight preface, I guess, we've all heard the phrase at this point. I've also put this down below in the description. So if I'm looking down, it's just reminding me of what I need to say. We've all heard this phrase or some reiteration of never judge a book by its cover, don't judge a book by its cover. You know, we've all heard some reiteration of it. But is it really something that should or can apply to books? Now, personally, in my opinion, I think it can generally apply to books. It can apply to books in the general broad sense of it. However, I don't think it's super necessary to apply this to books, and I do think it applies more to people in life or life situations. I think that applies to those more than it does to books. And I'll talk about like some of the pros, cons, yada yada yada, like I do with some of my other talky videos. So we're gonna get into that in one moment. So I did turn the brightness down a little bit for my ring lights. Let me show you. This baby just gets really bright at times, so especially when it's just been charged. So I do have some links down below in the description. 4 links specifically. I'm going to be going over the 2 Reddit links after I go over like the pros and the cons. And then at the end of the day, you can decide if that's something you want to do for yourself or not do for yourself. So with all that said, let's get into this. Now, I'm going to go over the cons first. And they kind of basically, the pros and the cons do overlap. It's kind of like a double-edged sword, so to say, or like 2 sides of the same coin, where the argument can go both ways. So that's what I do for the pros and the cons, but I just gave different explanations. Now, personally, I do lean more towards the pros because, like I said, I don't think it should apply to books. Again, I think it can apply generally to books, but at the end of the day, I think it's obsolete. I don't think we need to like be forcing ourselves to not judge books, actual books, by their covers. So going over the cons first. I keep wanting to melt the words. Going over the cons first. The first one, it's only like 3 for each. The first one is that if a book is more than one genre, the cover might not fit it might not fit perfectly under one genre or another. So we see it a lot, especially recently with like romance, where it's like romance has a lot of like cartoony type covers, or certain mass market paperbacks, like the ones that are about like bakeries, cafes, farmhouses, like those have that typical style. You know, I think that there was like the gingerbread bakery or like the pumpkin spice latte cafe. So it's like there's like certain cover styles for certain genres. If you think of like mystery, you might think of like a house on a lake, or a single light somewhere, or like a single car on a road, you know, a single light on the road. So there are certain covers that fit certain genres, but if a book is like more than one genre, like if it's fantasy romance, or I don't know, if it's like fantasy murder mystery, like it might not fit perfectly into that. So it might be a little bit harder to judge a book by its cover and know what you're getting into based on the cover alone. The second con is that you could pass up on good books if you're going based off of the cover alone. Now, for me, when I'm at the bookstore, I'm going to pick up books. Like, I'm going to pick them up based on their covers. Like, if it's a book I haven't heard of, I'm going to pick it up based off the cover. And if I'm setting it down based off of the cover, then I could potentially miss out on a good book that I would have enjoyed. I could potentially miss out on that because I set it down based off the cover. So, there's that. If you're judging based off the cover alone, you could miss out on good books. And then con number 3 is that even if even if a cover indicates certain tropes or themes, it might not always be used the same as to what you're used to. So the one I can think of is like the hockey romance. It's like certain hockey romance tropes might not be used the same in two hockey romance books. So it's that kind of thing. Or if it's a romantasy that has dragons and the dragons are on the cover, the use of the dragons might be different. That kind of a thing. Well, it might not even have to be romance. If a book has dragons and there are dragons on the cover, the dragons might not be used the same, you know? They may not represent the same things. So it's kind of that thing where it's like, even if a cover indicates certain tropes, themes, imagery, it might not be exactly the same as what you like, what you're used to, what you don't like. So again, it's like passing up on a good book or potentially picking up a bad book based off of the cover. And then as for the prose, so the first one, genres typically have a similar cover style. There's a cover style like I was talking about at the beginning. There's like the mass market paperback style books about like the cafes or like small towns where you see the building and then the color scheme. There's romance, like if we look at hockey romance, a lot of times they're on the ice and they have the hockey sticks. And the guy is usually in the hockey uniform. If you look at like fantasy romance, if you look at fantasy, there is going to be some fantasy elements in the cover. If you look at romance, there is going to be some indication of the main couple on the cover. So if the romance is like the main part of the plot. So genres typically have a cover style so that you kind of have an idea of what you're getting into based off of the cover. Like, where is it? Have an official's blessing, which I'm doing the reading vlog for now, finally. Romance. You can kind of tell that this will most likely be a romance book. Whereas picking up, Under the Oak Tree, this is a fantasy romance, but does lean more towards a fantasy cover. So that kind of a dealio is like, you kind of know what you're getting into based off of the cover. And then the second pro is that covers tend to draw people in before the synopsis even draws them in, especially if you're in person at a bookstore or an event where there's books. Or even at someone's house and they have the bookshelf and you're looking at the bookshelf. The cover will tend to draw someone in before the synopsis does. Unless someone says like a friend or family member says like, oh, you'd really enjoy that book. The cover is going to draw them in more. And it's going to draw them in first. Like, I'm trying to think of some examples on my shelf at the moment. And covers don't just include imagery. It doesn't just include the imagery, it includes the title. So looking at Hooked by Emily McIntyre, you see the clock, there's the title Hooked, and then underneath a Never After novel, you can maybe kind of guess it's a Peter Pan. Or it's something related to Peter Pan, and then the kiss mark right there. Okay, maybe it's romance. Maybe it's like darker romance because it's a darker cover. So it's that kind of a thing. And if someone's into dark romance, then that's going to be something that draws them in a little bit more, where it's like, oh, there's the kiss mark, it's darker color scheme, there's a clock. Okay, you can kind of guess Captain Hook and probably Wendy. In that case, yes. So it's like that kind of a thing. They'll draw it in before the synopsis does. And then the third one, kind of on the same track, is that similar book tropes and book themes will have similar covers. Like, I'm trying to think. Like a lot of my Natasha Lester books, I'm not going to pull them out because they're kind of under some stuff. You have like a really strong female main character and then someone for really strong female friends or another character who's really close. So a lot of those books have at least one female character on the cover, and that's usually representative of the main female character, the FMC, And then in The Paris Orphan, you also have a little girl on the cover, so it's the orphan that's the main female character bonds with. In The Paris Seamstress, it's like one of the friends. So yeah, it's similar tropes, themings will have similar covers. And like I mentioned earlier, like, yes, a cover being similar because it has similar tropes and themes doesn't indicate it's used the same, but you can kind of guess, like, hey, that trope, that theme is there. Even if it's not used the same, it's there. So going over the Reddit threads real quick. Now this one is under r/writing, and this is from about 2 years ago. And someone says, fellow writers, do readers really judge books based off the covers? And in the post itself, it says, I'll admit, some people judge a book by its cover right off the bat, without even opening the book. Some, not all. And yeah, that's true. Not all of us will judge the book by its cover. Some of us will. What I usually do, especially when I'm in person, it happens a lot in person, is I'll pick up a book. Okay, picking up Heaven Official's Blessing Volume 2. If the cover interests me, or like the spine interests me, I'll pick it up, I'll look at it, and then I'll read the synopsis. But again, it's that situation where the cover will be the one that stands out to me, because the synopsis is usually on the back or the inner flap. So usually that first gut instinct is based off of the cover. Now, there are some people who will go solely based off the cover, but there will also be some who will turn to the synopsis, wherever it is. Anyway, all readers are different and have different opinions on opinions on is considered professional. Both writing and the cover art for writing. A little confused by that part, but like, anyway, readers have different opinions. We'll go into it differently. Not saying my own book covers are professional for my writing. Oh, professional for the writing? Maybe like fitting the writing. I'm not quite sure. I didn't read these before I added them. Anyway, not saying my own book covers are professional for my writing, but I had people in person said that my art is professional. My other art, not my book covers, because they didn't get to see them yet. LOL. Notes, I do my own book covers because I am 18. But I'm wondering if readers actually judge a book by its cover. Everyone's opinions are welcome. Thank you. So, first comment says, yes, the cover is the first sales tool you have. Yes. Yes. People will stop or not, depending on what the cover shows them. Covers tell genre, tone, general story. Kind of what I was talking about. Covers are not art in the sense that most people mean. They're like the packaging on any item. It attracts the eye. It tells you what you're going to get. Like a pack of cookies or laundry detergent. You stop, you read the label, you make a decision. That's a really good example. Like when you go for a pack of cookies. Okay, you know you're going to get chocolate chip. Okay, what's in this chocolate chip? Okay, oatmeal's in it. I'm not a big oatmeal fan, so I'm going to sit down. But I do like chocolate chip, and there's like 5 different chocolate chips. So it's like, you pick up the first one that catches your eye. Okay, I don't like oatmeal, set that one down. Oh, I'm allergic to peanut butter, or I'm allergic to peanuts, so set that one down. So it's like, they're all chocolate chip cookies, you know? They're all books. But you're going to pick up the first ones that attract your eye. Again, especially in in-person bookstores. Okay. So, anyway, I'm just scrolling through some of these comments. The cover might get me to pick up a book, but the blurb is going to get me to buy it. How can you get your cover to be even louder with the current market? Try going in the opposite direction. And then someone else says, anyone who tells you readers don't judge a book by its cover is either lying to you, and possibly themselves, or being far too literal with the application of the word judge. The degree to which a book's cover factors into someone's final opinion about the book isn't the issue. A book cover is, first and foremost, an advertising tool, like the other person was saying earlier. It's what you're presenting to potential readers. When you're in a bookstore or scrolling through Amazon, all you really have to go is go by is the cover, especially if you haven't clicked on it yet. Like if you look at online platforms, whether it's the Barnes & Noble app, the Barnes & Noble websites, Amazon, even though we're trying not to use Amazon, going based off of Libro.fm or Libby or the library apps, like if you're going based off of those, you go based off of the cover. And you're like, okay, that one's, unless you're specifically looking at the book. So you're going based off of that before you click on it. Okay, where was I? When you're, unless you're a big enough name that you being an author is going to sell a book all by itself, the cover needs to do the work of getting someone to pick up your book. It needs to catch the reader's eye, communicate what sort of book it is, and look professional. You're selling a product. Okay, so I do get like the professional meaning. It just was taking me a minute. It took me this comment. Where it's like, yeah, it needs to be professional, and yeah, I get it now. I'm not gonna explain it. My brain's a little too tired for that. You're selling a product. If you're in the grocery store looking for bread and saw something on the shelf wrapped in garbage bags and duct tape, would you be likely to buy it? Probably not. You wouldn't even pick it up because you'd assume it was rubbish. It could be the most amazing loaf of bread anyone's ever eaten, but you'd never find out because you'd go for the thing that was packaged in a way that makes it obvious what's in it, and that looks like it was put together by someone who knows what they're doing. The same applies to books. It doesn't matter how good the contents are if you can't get people to pick it up in the first place. And again, like, this argument really applies more so to books you don't know anything about. Like with Heaven Official's Blessing, I had watched the anime first. What did I call it? What? Is it called Donghua? Donghua. There we go. Right when I was looking up. So I'd watched the Chinese anime, the Donghua, before picking up the books, picking up the novels. And so, like, if I didn't know anything, I would probably pick it up, read the synopsis, and have been interested in it. But if I didn't know anything about it, the cover would have drew me in. Whether I was picking up the first one or one of the later ones. So, and then it's the same thing with For Whom the Bell Tolls, Under the Oak Tree. I got that as a recommendation from my sister and one of my friends. And then Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, the same author as Heaven Official's Blessing. Like, that one my sister had, and then she gave that one to me. I would have found that one because I would have tried to explore more by the author of Heaven Official's Blessing. So you get the meaning. If you're unaware of a certain book by a certain author, the first thing that's going to attract you to that book or to that series is going to be the cover. Okay. Let's see. If the cover doesn't grab me, I'm less likely to pick up the book. The cover also helps to indicate the genre, and I'll go post. Okay. The cover also helps indicate the genre. There's a couple of typos in this one comment, but they say the cover also helps indicate the genre, and I'll go past books that look like genres I'm not into. Bookstores are full of books. Libraries are full of books, even the electronic versions, library apps, the app versions of bookstores, if they have an app version, audiobook apps, they're full of books. Especially if you just go to like a recommended page, like the first thing that's going to attract you is the cover. Bookstores are full of books. Something has to prompt you to pick it up, even if the cover isn't a good fit. If the cover isn't a good fit, you better hope the bookshop employees put a little card by it so someone picks it up. So, yeah. So it doesn't, like, I know earlier I was saying, like, it really depends, like, it really happens more in a physical bookstore, but it can happen anywhere. Like, again, like I was saying, if you're not already in a certain world or know a certain author, or into a certain genre, the first thing that's going to pick you up, the first thing that's going to make you pick up a book is going to be the cover. So the next Reddit thread is under the r/books thread, and this is again from 2 years ago. Judging books by their covers. Don't judge a book by its cover. I know I've noticed a lot of people do not heed this advice at all, and rightfully so. Specific styles correspond to different genres, etc. What features on a cover do you take as a telltale sign, that the book is worth reading? For me, there's a specific font that most contemporary books use on their own, like Taylor Jenkins Reid's signature fonts. If I see that font, I'll pick it up and read a few pages without hesitation. Okay, so for me, before what features on a cover do you take as a sign that the book is worth reading, or vice versa, not worth reading? For me, I'm not a big romance person. It has to be like specific authors. Romance can't be the main plot. So if the cover looks like a stereotypical romance book, like I'll do respect to Emily Henry, but like if it looks like an Emily Henry cover or a high school romance book, or like sports romance, I'm less likely to pick it up. If it's romancy looking, if there's a couple on it, I'm less likely to pick it up. And as for what I will pick up, wow, okay, I feel like Heaven Official's Blessing kind of goes way against that, but like I said, I watched the anime first. Stuff that I do look for, if it's more like fantastical looking, so in the fantasy genre, if I'm looking at like my bookshelf right now, I do like dark romance. So if it looks like it's gonna be more of a dark romance read, then I'll probably pick it up. If it's a historical fiction book, there are some telltale signs for that. Like it looks more aged, even if it's not. There's somewhat of an aged look to it. If the colors are really contrasting, I'll pick it up. It doesn't matter the genre, but if it really contrasts with colors, then I'll pick it up. But yeah, so those are the main telltale things for me that I'll look for whether or not I should pick up a book or avoid it. So the first comment I'm seeing is, I agree with the other commenter. I use it as my way to avoid things I won't like. Example, what they used to call airport fiction, the books with embossed titles in gold or silver. I remember I used to intentionally avoid those. Like, I don't avoid those as much anymore, but like I don't really think about them. I avoid anything glossy black with a single red/bloody object. I don't know, it just feels super edge lady to me. I'm a sucker for a pretty cover though. What can I say? Some recent trends I love are the kaleidoscope/wreath/frame around the title, thread needle, the Ruthless Lady's Guide to Wizardry, The Adventures of Amina El-Sirafi UK edition, big sans serif lettering, new Agatha Christie paperbacks, The Expanse, Stephen King's Holly, hyper colorful painting like Seven Moons of Magali Almeida, A Magic Steeped in Poison, The Honeys. I really hate the recent trend of romance novels with the vector art characters. Though there have been a few that I thought were well done. Someone said shirtless men with abs is a pass for me. I'm not the type. I'm not into that type of men anyway, so why would I want to read about it? I do have one book. If you don't like men on covers, turn away now. Or actually give me a second, but still turn away now. Just trying to grab it. So this one, there's a slight glance, but this one I read it through Kindle Unlimited, and I need to figure out it'll be through Amazon, sadly. After I was just saying we should avoid Amazon, but this is the only way I can support the author without continuing a Kindle Unlimited subscription. So this I had read through when I was in a really bad reading slump. This isn't really dark romance, it's just more mature romance in the sense of it, like in the sense of you have two, in the 3 books that are in this book, in this omnibus, you have 2 people who are adults and at some point will, in a relatively reasonable time, will talk about their emotions. Okay, let me rephrase. If there's been like an argument or a disagreement, they will in a relatively reasonable time talk about their emotions and talk about what's going on. Because there have been too many times with romance where they just don't talk about a miscommunication and they just let it steam for the whole book. And that's what really annoys me. They don't do that. And that's also kind of why I like dark romance, because they don't let it steam for too long. Did I say steam earlier? Whatever. You know what I meant. They don't let it steep for too long. There are some things where I excuse it with, but it's mostly, there are some things I excuse the miscommunication trope with, but that's movies and movies I grew up on. And with this book, so again, it's not dark romance, but it is mature romance in the sense of you have 2 adults who know how to adult. It does make me giggle a little bit. And again, it's like, it's one of those things where it's like Kindle Unlimited books, so maybe we'll get... Honestly, this is the Court of the Underworld series by Lessa Thorne, so this is the last 3 books of the overarching Court of the Underworld series. Court of the Underworld? No, God's Universe series. Court of the Underworld was the first 7 books, and then Gods of the Duat. Last 3. Well, not last 3. Books 7 through 10. No, 8 through 10. So, yeah. I excuse it with this one because I went through a reading slump, but this pulled me out of a reading slump. And plus, too, it's like, I can excuse it for those guys. I can excuse it for the characters. So, one moment, like, get back on. Okay, I don't know how exactly I said that, but I had to get it back on my bookshelf. Then I excuse it for that in that series. And also the Contemporary Mythos series by Carly Spade. I think One Naked Guy, that's like Poseidon's book. I excuse it for that. I excuse people on the cover for that. People on the cover, realistic. It's not a turn off for me. I understand why it happens, you know, because it's like it tends to be a little bit cheaper than getting like an artist to do it. So it's like, I get it. It's not a turn off for me, but it's not like something I gravitate towards easily. So anyway, shirtless man. Anyway, if the cover has a graphic design is my passion air about it, I'll usually pass. I feel like a lack of effort on the cover can indicate a lack of effort on the story inside. Not always, but I do love corny romance novels with corny covers, and I've read terrible books with beautiful covers, but sometimes that hunch can be right. If the author's name is bigger than the title of the book, I skip it. Yeah, like, I feel like in that kind of a situation, they're trying too hard. Like, if their name is bigger than the cover, like, then I'll mistake their name for being the title of the book. And then I'll get confused. And then the last comment I'll look at, if it's got a non-fiction look with a solid color cover and just some font, I'm instantly bored. Same with anything with a bunch of hodgepodge elements that are supposed to be abstract. I like attractive faces, flowers, birds, and landscapes. I also hate the domestic thrillers, so anything with a dark house with one lit window or a cover featuring a wedding ring or rings is a pass, especially rings plus blood. I get that. Yeah, one person said, say it again, give the first 2 chapters a shot at least. Some stories I never thought I'd like from a glance had some depth or viewpoints that kept me going. I do. Like, I personally have been doing that recently, but that's more so books that are already on my radar. Like, when I go to, like, Barnes & Noble, when I've intended to pick something up and maybe get something, then I'll pick up the books that I've been eyeing lately, and I'll read the first 10 to 15 pages, depending on the length of the first chapter. So, I do that I do that, but again, it's really more so for books that are already on my radar. So that's how I do it. And that is the end of this video. We're wrapping up. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. I'd love to know what you think about this stuff. So that is it for this video. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.